Sometimes finding yourself begins with questioning everything you assumed was you. Most of us grow up believing that who we are is simply who we are. We rarely stop to ask where that identity came from. We say, I'm not confident. I'm too sensitive. I'm too difficult to love. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. That's just the way I am. But what if some of those statements aren't descriptions of who you are? What if they're conclusions you formed about yourself through what happened to you? I certainly did. From childhood onwards, we are constantly learning about ourselves through our experiences. How people respond to us, whether we feel accepted or rejected, whether our emotions are welcomed or dismissed, whether we feel safe expressing ourselves, whether love feels secure or something we have to earn. And because children don't have the understanding they develop later in life, they often make experiences mean something about themselves. Being rejected can become, there must be something wrong with me. Being criticised can become, I'm not good enough. I know that one really well. Being abandoned can become, people always leave me. And that's something I had to deal with, an abandonment wound. Or having to keep others happy can become, my needs don't matter. Eventually these conclusions become beliefs. The beliefs influence our thoughts. Our thoughts influence our behaviour. And our behaviour begins to create what we call our personality or our identity. Years later, we may no longer remember where those beliefs came from. We simply say, well, that's just me. But finding yourself sometimes requires being willing to question that. Is this really me? Or is this something I learned to believe about myself? I certainly had many beliefs about myself that were formed. Is this how I naturally want to live? Or is this how I learn to survive? And I can say yes to that. Is this genuinely what I want? Or am I still trying to gain approval, avoid rejection, keep people happy, or prove that I'm worthy? And this is where returning to yourself begins. Not by immediately trying to become a better version of yourself, but by becoming curious about the version of yourself you've been carrying most of your life. You begin separating who you are from who you learn to be. And something powerful can happen when you do. You realise that you don't have to fight everything about yourself. Some things simply need to be understood. The frightened parts, the protective parts, the people-pleasing parts, the angry parts, the parts that learned not to trust, the parts that believed they weren't enough. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? You begin asking, what happened that taught me to see myself this way? And then perhaps the most important question of all is, who might I be without everything I learned to believe about myself? And you may discover that finding yourself isn't really about finding someone who disappeared. It's about gradually removing everything that convinced you that you had to be someone else. Question the story, question the beliefs, question the identity you inherited from your experiences. Because underneath everything you learn to become, you may discover the real person you always were.